Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 11th, 2017. As we are recording this, my name is Trigby. I am the Director of Buzz Development here at BizzyWeb. And I just want to welcome everybody, say Happy New Year to you. And so what we're going to be doing today is going over a really simple marketing strategy that has a lot of idiosyncrasies that go along with it. But it's a great and inexpensive way to really grow your business with using both email and social media going together. There is going to be a handout after this, which we will get emailed out to you. And so if you've registered and we have your email address, you will be getting a workbook that will help you work through the methodology and the things that I'm going to be talking about today so that you know exactly how to do this and you can actually create a real tangible marketing plan that is in your hands. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, my name is Trigby. I am the Director of Buzz Development here at BizzyWeb. What is BizzyWeb? We are a full-service digital marketing agency. We are based in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we are can take you from everything from having no brand whatsoever to starting a brand to building a website, getting people to look at that website, getting people to take the actions in which that you want them to take, and even more. We have everybody who works for us is a full-term American employee. They are based here in Champlin, which is a suburb of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so if any of this seems interesting to you, you'd like to talk to somebody after the fact, we'd be happy to chat with you. In addition to this, we are constant contact. Sorry about that. I had a bit of an internet hookup over here, so let me present my screen again to you. I apologize for that. It must be the terrible weather here in Minnesota. So, okay, let's get started and let's really get into what we're going to be talking about today. So if you are interested in asking questions of me, the easiest way to do that is to use the hashtag BizzyWebinar. You see it at the bottom of your screen there. Go to Twitter and tweet your question using the hashtag BizzyWebinar, and it will get to me as soon as possible, and I'll answer it for you live. So how am I going to break this down for you today? First thing we're going to talk about is what small business marketing looks like today. Then we're going to talk about how do you set a goal, what's an effective goal, and how exactly do you accomplish it. Then we're going to talk about messaging, how to choose the right message for you, what platform to broadcast it from, how to build better relationships through better content, and even writing a great call to action. Next, we're going to get into measuring success. How do you really know whether or not any of the marketing efforts that you've done have been successful for you? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. And then finally, best practices to get started today. So once again, I apologize for the internet snafu. Hopefully we won't have too many of those. So let's go ahead and jump right into small business marketing today. So the first thing I'm going to show you is what Business class, this is sort of first day stuff. This is what a sales funnel looks like. You're going to spend the majority of your time trying to gain as many customers as possible, prospects, and then you're going to convert them to customers, and then you're going to spend the least amount of time keeping those customers and retaining those customers. This is sort of the basics of business. Everybody should know this. The trouble is it's actually wrong in this day and age. What a funnel really looks like now is the complete opposite. You have the responsibility to have your information be presented to your potential audience across the world at any time, 24/7. There's no such thing as business hours anymore. So the challenge for you is you want to spend the most intense time keeping the customers that you have, because those people who are going to become new customers, they're going to engage with you whenever they want to. If they want to engage with you at 8 o'clock at night while they're watching Modern Family, they're going to be doing that. If they want to engage with you during business hours, they're going to do that. But more than likely in this day and age, they're going to be making a decision about whether or not you can help them even before they meet you. So there is no starting prospecting anymore. Prospecting, it really comes into play when you're talking about your digital footprint. The good news is you do have a great, tremendous competitive advantage over everyone else, is you can make a personal connection with the people that you do business with. If you make a post on Diet Coke's Facebook page, who has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of likes, and you want to talk about how much you like that product, it's going to get awash in the noise. But if you can make a connection with somebody in a fewer amount of people who are really going to tell other people about you and create a great interaction that you can share with other people, that's going to have a lasting impact. So being yourself and being the connection that you can make is really important. The word of the day for today is engagement. Think of a tennis match. When two people are interacting with each other, but they're doing so in a way that they have a stadium full of people that are watching them. This is what social media tools really are. It's a way in which to grow that audience. Ultimately, we still have to win the match, and we still have to do so in a way that's advantageous for most people. But really what social media is, and I included email in that, is it's a way to increase the audience, and it's a way to get to that base level of who we are as a person, the kind of interaction that we provide to people. It's a lot of options that I just threw at you, and it's a very simple thing, but it's very difficult to achieve and achieve well. And the big question that you should be asking me right now is, Trygve, oh my goodness, are you making the most, am I going to be making the most effective decisions? Do I need to have every single channel under the sun? Do I need to do all of these? Shouldn't I be out actually doing my job as opposed to managing my social media presence? That's a lot of questions that I even asked myself hypothetically that I don't even remember the answers to. The answer is no. You do not have to have every single channel. There are some effective ways in which you can combine the two together, which is really the point of what we're talking about today, so that you can be doing your actual job. So here's a question for you. And if you want to use the hashtag BizzyWebinar, you can certainly do so as a way to interact with me. But what's the most effective and the #1 cell phone app out there today? Everybody talks about what exactly is the best app out there. There's always the newest app. There's always the latest and greatest app. The answer to the question is, across any platform, it's email. More often than not, we check our email at least 10 times an hour on our phone, statistically speaking, which adds up to about 100 times a day. So the simple fact of the matter is the people that we are looking to interact with are on their phones and they are on email. So as we're trying to establish the baseline of where we're going to be and how we're going to do it, it's incredibly crucial to have email to be a part of that, because simply put, people are always going to be reading their email. The trick, though, is we want to do so effectively in a way that engages them to stop walking down the street looking at their phone and start picking up the phone and calling. The reason we want to look at email is that it's incredibly cost effective. By and large, statistically speaking, a return on investment, if you do email well, for every dollar you spend on email, you should get at least $40 back. That's a big number, which is why I included it on the screen, $40 per $1 spent. Here's a strange statistic that goes along with this. Times have changed now. We actually trust strangers or people that we don't necessarily interact with. Think about this. When is the last time you've gone on your Facebook page at night as you're sitting in front of the TV, and you see a simple question? Somebody who you used to go to high school with asks the question, does anybody know a good plumber? It's a basic question, and you think, hey, yeah, I know a good plumber, and you share that information. That's because 46% of people now rely on social media when they're making a purchase. All of those people that we interact with on social media, they're going to be wanting to get our information and our feedback so that they can rely on us to do that due diligence. If we know a great plumber, chances are that plumber can do the same job for us. And here's another fairly shocking statistic. 88% of people nowadays find online reviews as trustworthy as personal recommendations. That's something that happens to me all the time. If I'm trying to establish whether or not I buy product A or product B, I'm always going to be looking at the difference between what the recommendations are. Now, obviously, no matter what, there's always going to be one really fantastic recommendation, and then there's going to be one really horrible recommendation. You can just throw those away. But what happens is the ones in the middle, how truthful are they? How interesting are they? That's, for me, really resonates, because if there's a lot of people saying good things, I'm going to be interested in making that purchase. So I wanted to talk about the hypothetical business and how this actually manifests itself in real life. So here's the Half Moon Yoga Studio. We're going to be talking about the Half Moon Yoga Studio as we go through. This will be sort of our test case, our hypothetical example as we're talking about this. So let's talk about setting our goals. Goals are great. Goals are something that we want to set to accomplish, but they need to have some basic elements that go along with it so that we aren't disappointing ourselves in the long run. So first question I want you to ask yourself is, what exactly are you trying to achieve? Be specific about what that is, and be specific about how you want to do something. Don't just say, well, I'd like to grow my business. That's great, but how are you going to do that? Is it going to be through more sales, through more audience interaction? Is it going to be bringing new people into the store? Is it going to be engaging more people online? There's a lot of things that go into just, well, I want to up my business. What exactly does that look like, and how are you going to accomplish it? That's the first thing that we're going to be talking about today. When you set your goals, you want to do three things. Number one, you want to define who are you trying to reach. Are you trying to reach a prospect? Are you trying to reach your current customers? Are you trying to reach past customers? Next, set a real, actual target. I would like to increase my overall client base by adding X number of people. That's a good goal to have, so that when I reach that goal, I know that I've really been successful. Again, just having that nebulous idea of, well, I want to increase my business. There's no end to that. We all want to increase our business. But what we're going to get to later is that secondary market of marketing effort. And we want to make sure that that time spent there helps us achieve our goal. Third, we want to make sure that we have a timetable on our business goal. We want to show that in a specific grouping of time, that's when we're going to try and achieve this goal. So again, that bad business goal that I talked about of, well, I want to increase my business, that's great. When do you know when that ends? You really don't. And similarly, if you put too short of a timetable on it, you're never going to achieve that goal. Here at BizzyWeb, we do pretty good for what we do. We have several hundred clients that we deal with. If I said, well, I wanted to double my business, that'd be great, but that would take some time in order to do it. If I said I wanted to double my business by the end of the month, I'm dead in the water before I even get going. So when you write your own business goal, again, if you see the little workbook there, this is going to be the first part of that workbook that you're going to get emailed after this event so that you can actually start creating your own business showcase and your own business plan. A couple of things I want you to keep in mind. Who are we talking about? What do we want them to do? And when do we want them to do it? So when you write your own business goal, and if you want to, I can even give you a little time right now to do it. Write a business goal that hits these 3 points. Who are we going to target? What do we want them to do? And when do we want them to do it? Coming back to the Half Moon Yoga Studio, and feel free to do that now while I talk about the Half Moon. So the example, our hypothetical example of the Half Moon Yoga Studio, let's say we want to increase the number of people coming to classes. We're going to target current members, people who are paying but not showing up. And the second thing is we want to grow our average by at least 10 attendees per class, and our timetable is over 3 months. So after that 3-month period, we should be able to tell, yes, we achieved our goal, or no, we didn't, based on actual tangible data. Okay, let's get into the next big question for 2017, which is, what is my message, and do people really care about what I have to say? The answer is yes, and yes to both. So let's first talk about picking your platform and picking that social media platform that you're going to be using. One of the biggest questions that we get at BizzyWeb all the time is when we meet a business owner, they say, well, which social channel is best for me? My answer is I look at them very plainly and I say, I don't know. It depends on a number of different things. Number one, by and large, Facebook and email are going to be two that we want to look at. But your audience might be using Twitter, your audience might be using Pinterest, you might be using Instagram. So take what I say here with a grain of salt, and really the best thing that I can encourage you to do is, if you don't know which platform to use beyond Facebook and email, it's a good thing to ask the people that you're working with and ask those customers, where are they, what are you using, and why is that important to you? So the reason why I want to start with these two things is, especially when it comes to emails, by and large, statistically speaking, 90% of the time an email is going to get delivered to an email box. On the converse, because of Facebook's new algorithms and their new ways of trying to show you what's most interesting to you, and they're basically trying to figure out what are you going to be most interested in, only 2% of your Facebook fans will see you in their newsfeed. Obviously, there's ways in which we can increase that, but ultimately, when we work on the two of those things together, that's going to give us a great two-headed monster that's going to work in concert together to get us the most eyeballs on our message as possible. So when we include these two things together, email and social media, because one chick is cute, but two little chickens together are double the cuteness. We get 73% more customer engagement. That's a big change. So if you're thinking that, boy, I'm on this webinar with Trygve and he's going to give me the keys to the kingdom, that if I just do my Facebook better, I'm going to do things better, I'm going to make more money, the answer is no. They all have to work in concert together, and all of your marketing efforts have to complement each other. But when that happens, you are going to get a much greater customer engagement. You're going to get more new customers, and you're going to get more business referrals if you have these two things working together. So that's why we're going to be planning on doing this today. So let's take a look at an email. This is an email for a barbecue joint that I'm particularly fond of, which is why I wanted to include it here. They've got some social sharing options on this email that are worth comparing. So if you look on the left, that's their email newsletter. We've got new menu items. And then on the right is their Facebook page. So are they presenting the same information on their Facebook page as on their email? Well, kind of, sort of. On the right with the Facebook page, they're saying, have you seen our latest news? We're literally enticing people by the look of really great barbecue to sign up for the email, and we're giving them a call to action to say, hey, if you join our email list, you're going to get more information. Now, the converse of that is, as a business owner, when we have people's personal contact information, that's the start in the engagement process. We're asking people for something small and benign as a way to increase the opportunity for them to come buy from us. Important to keep in mind here as I go through this is what you think is interesting and where you think you should be doesn't necessarily matter as much as being where your customers are and what your customers are interested in. So on anything that you do when you have social sharing buttons, you don't want to, the worst thing that you can do is to entice people to go to a social channel that you have no interest in or you're not doing anything with. That happens to me all the time. If I look at somebody's social channels and I think, boy, this is interesting, I want to learn more, and I go to their Twitter feed and they haven't tweeted in the better part of a year, well, I ask the question of myself, well, if they haven't tweeted in the better part of a year, how do I know that they're going to be interested in working with me? So in that particular instance, because I like Twitter, then that our hypothetical business needs to be engaged on Twitter. So the key thing to keep in mind here is be where your customers are. If your customers are using different social channels, you need to use those different social channels. The reason I bring this up is because email gives you a great opportunity to learn about which ones your customers are using. So you can answer that question of, well, if you don't know Trigby, where should I be? By looking at analytics, and again, this hypothetical email where I showed you the social bar, we can see that they got the most clicks on Pinterest. So if you're not using Pinterest, you really need to. Or they get the second most clicks on Facebook. So their Instagram has 2 clicks. So as we're trying to evaluate what is going to be the best channels for us, having actual physical real data about where those prospects and those customers are is really going to make our jobs a lot easier, because we're going to know exactly what we need to do. So as we're combining social and email together, it begs the question, when do we need to do those things? How much do we need to do those things? We all get inundated with marketing efforts every single day. By and large, we get hit with somebody marketing to us at least 160 times a day. How do we cut through that clutter? How do we make it so it's interesting to us and only valuable just to us? Well, if we're going to be talking about social media, I'd encourage you to try and plan out posting 3 to 5 times a week. More than that, people are going to start to wonder what you're doing if all you're doing is being on email. Less than that, you're going to hit the Facebook algorithm where you're going to not come up as much. And there are a lot of really great automated tools that you can use in order to make your life easier. We use a tool called Hootsuite, H-O-O-T-S-U-I-T-E. Hootsuite is a tool that you can schedule your posts, and even Facebook is included in that now. So you could conceivably sit down once a day and write, once a week rather, and write out your Facebook posts for the week and schedule them to go out. So that 3 to 5 times a week doesn't mean you have to be there every day. It just means that there has to be new information 3 to 5 times a week. When it comes to email, by and large, once a month is about the most common. More than that, we tend to club people over the head with extraneous information. Less than that, people don't necessarily see where the hits are. So the next thing that I want to talk about is how do we build our relationships through content. I do want to stop and remind you that if you are viewing this live and you want to ask me a question about what I've gone over so far, you can do so by tweeting a message to hashtag BizzyWebinar, BizzyWebinar. It doesn't look like I have any tweets as of yet, so we're going to get going into how to write and use better content. So I've said this before, and I want to come back to it just for a second, is the best content is going to be about what your customers, your prospects want, not what you think is interesting, and especially not what you think is funny. As a lifelong practitioner of somebody who thinks he's funnier than he really is, I can guarantee you that not everybody thinks I'm as funny as I do. So we want to cater to our audience, not what's interesting to us. I'm always going to buy a website from me, but I'm not always going to buy something else from me. So when we focus on this, we want to do 80% of the time providing interesting and valuable content to our customers. 20% of the time, only 20% of the time, should we really be actively promoting a sales opportunity. So again, there's an 80-20 rule that applies here. So think of it this way. There's a store here in the Twin Cities that called Wilson's Leather. And Wilson's Leather has been going out of business for, I don't know, going on 20 years now. So the more I see that going out of business sign, the less I'm interested in stopping in, because I realize that they're not really going out of business. And so that sense of urgency of making me want to go in to buy has gotten clubbed out of me by the frequency in which I see it. So a more interesting conversation that we're having online, we should have online with our customers, is what can you provide them and how can you make their day better in such a way that you avoid doing that, so that when the time comes that they do need to buy, they're going to come to you. So when you're talking about the 80% rule, here's sort of a finite explanation of it. So when you're talking about valuable information, provide them something like 3 common mistakes on your taxes. That's a content piece that you can provide that is going to make people realize that you're an expert in what you do, but you're not demanding that they buy from you right away. So the 20% of the time, I would caution you against doing a lot of this, but it looks like, hey, let us do your taxes. We're ready to go. We've got people standing by. That's okay to a point, but a lot more than that, it is your message is going to tend to get lost out. So when we're talking about content, we're talking about what we want to do. The easiest thing that I can suggest to you is look at what every business has, which is a frequently asked questions set. What are the questions in which people ask of you all the time, and what are the questions in which people ask you every single day of your life? Turn those questions, like, how do I weatherproof my new bag? Can I set my own hours? Where are your locations? Turn those questions into content. Content looks like this: how to weatherproof your golf bag, top 3 benefits to volunteering this summer, or we're in your neighborhood, find out where. So those questions that we get asked all the time, we can actually subvert the process a little and answer people's questions before they even know that they need to be answered. Again, as we looked at the sales funnel to begin with, we realized that people are going to make evaluative decisions before they even call us. So the more information we have, the more unanswered questions that we can answer, the more likely we are to turn those interactions into prospects. So when we're looking at email to start with, and that content to create a subject line, there's a couple of rules of thumb I want you to think about. Number 1, don't make your subject line more than 5 to 8 words long. Second, include some numbers in it. Give people an opportunity to understand how much of a time commitment that you're asking. So remember, things like saying 3 tips on how to best do your taxes is better than 18 paragraphs on how to do your taxes. Last, you always want to encourage action. The subject line is going to be the first place that people are going to see us in email, and it's going to be their first evaluative decision on whether or not they're going to interact with us by simply doing something as simple as opening an email. Let's take a look and see how this really works in action, using some resources to do that. So these content places that we're trying to draw from, we can draw from our blogs, we can draw from testimonials from our existing clients, or even interviews with them. Other places on social media, people that have written us great reviews, special guests, depending upon whether or not that works or not. Industry news is a great place to gather some content, or even if you've asked your customer base to do a survey, you want to return that favor back and let them know what the results were. That provides your customers with a tremendous sense of validation for doing that survey and providing them with that information. Next, after we figured out what our message is, we want to make sure that people understand who it's coming from in every conceivable sense of the word. So we want to make sure that our website and our email and even our social channels are consistent. So we want to do that by matching our colors, choosing our tone of voice. If you have a particular way of speaking, then, or if you have particular catchphrases that you use, like one of the things that my coworkers at BizzyWeb tell me that I say all the time is I start sentences with funny story, and then I tell them something that I think is funny as a way to talk. So including those ways of chatting that you do is absolutely critical to make sure that people know that it's really coming from you. This is interesting when you go to the next level and you want to hire a company like BizzyWeb. You want to make sure that they include this sort of information and have that sort of deeper understanding. The reason I mention that is we have a client at BizzyWeb, and again, we're based in Minnesota, who is based in Atlanta. And so here in Minnesota, when we want to have a Coca-Cola, we have what's known as pop. If we're on the East Coast, that's soda, but in Atlanta, everything under the sun is just Coca-Cola. So make sure that the tone matches who you are as people and it's consistent in its presentation. Providing video and visuals is a great way to really engage people very, very quickly. At our basis level, we make evaluative decisions and we make judgment calls based on what we see before anything else. So if we can see things that are engaging and interesting, like this one on screen here is a nonprofit giving kids more pajamas, that we see immediately that it's a video and it's interesting and we want to look at it. When we provide images, though, more images tend to hurt the eye, and people are turned off by it. So when you are providing images like videos and pictures, don't have more than 3. Make sure that every single image is clickable, meaning it goes somewhere, usually back to your website. And don't have a video longer than 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Any more than that, people are not going to want to ingest that content. Any less than that, and people are going to realize how long it's going to take, and they're going to, again, answer that unanswered question of, as we are intruding on their lives, how much are they going to be intruding, and what do you get from it? We've done something similar at BizzyWeb. If you go to our blog, we actually are starting to post how long it's going to take for you to read it as a way to try and increase our blog traffic as well. Next, we want to make sure that it looks good on mobile. Remember, I told you earlier that the most used cell phone app in the world across all platforms is email. So if we're sending emails and it looks really super terrific on a PC, that's okay, but it also has to look good on a 4-inch screen, because if I'm going to be looking at it over and over and over again, if it doesn't look good on my phone, or especially at my age, I'm only 40 years old, and anytime I have to pinch or squeeze and squint to try and read an email, it just irritates me, and I'm going to go somewhere else. Or more importantly, I'm just going to delete the email. So how do we do this? Well, a couple of things to keep in mind. We want to avoid having multiple columns. So only having one column. You can see the one I have on screen there is only one column of information. Second, use larger font sizes than you think. Again, keep in mind that we're going to be looking at this at a variety of spectrums, and as people trend older, it's going to be harder and harder to see, so make it bigger than you think. One of the things that I do, and I know this sounds very, very silly, is that when I create an email, I always make sure that I share it with my mother, who's 70 years old. And if she can't read it easily, or if she squints, then I'm going to know, yeah, I need to make the font size a little bigger. Finally, make sure that you limit your images. You want things to stack up correctly, as you see the difference between mobile and PC, as I've got on screen here. A lot of images means that you're not always going to be able to control how it stacks. The easiest way that you can see how it's going to look on an email is send it to yourself before you send it to your email list. By doing that, you can make a decision, you can make a mistake, and see if it looks just like you want it to look. Okay, as we're moving along into choosing our right message, the next thing we want to do is to write an effective call to action. What is that? What does that mean? I'll talk about that in just a second. So we talked about that 80-20 rule, that 20% of promotion is where the good stuff really is and where we can really start to make some pretty good hay. But in order to do so, we need to do so in a way that doesn't club people over the head and does so in a way that we can truly engage with them so that we can start having larger and larger questions. So taking advantage of those kind of looks like this. You have a goal, you have a result, you want to figure out what's the easiest way that you can bridge the two of them together. And just as I said earlier, fun fact, that is not me in the picture. The way in which you do that is your call to action, the thing that you want to ask that customer to lean off the bridge with you to combine together. And you do that through an effective call to action. So what does that actually look like? That's something like a big button that says click here. If you have a button, statistically speaking, that's going to create a 45% growth in your boost in your click-through rate. So again, here's an example of a couple of different emails. On the left, that was a basic email back in the dark ages of the internet, time in my life I like to call, where this was pretty hot stuff. This was something that you could send to a lot of different people. You could even include some pictures. But at the end of the day, which is more appealing from a visual level to you? More than likely, you're going to choose the one on the right because it's simple, there's a picture, it's easier to digest, and we know exactly what we want, what this emailer wants us to do, which is to ask them the question of how do we take the next step. So that's a really great call to action because, again, it's focused on just the one thing that we're asking of people to do. How do we design a really awesome call to action? Well, I want you to narrow down what you're asking your audience to do to one thing. If you're asking that people to do more than one thing, chances are they're not going to do either. But if you only have one, it's going to increase your click-through rate by percentages in the hundreds. Statistically, it's like 370%, but if you clearly are stating what you want somebody to do, chances are they're going to do it. Next, I want you to use some actionable language, and I'll talk about what actionable language means in just a second. And third, stay above the scroll line. So the scroll line is just like on a newspaper that there's the fold in the paper. The most important information is above the fold. As you're considering how this is done, make sure that all of your most important information is above the scroll. Now, the next logical question that you'll be asking me is, well, gosh, Trigby, if everybody's on all sorts of different platforms and on mobile and on tablets and on PCs and on Apples and on Macs, how do I know what's above the scroll line? Chances are good if you can have the most important thing be the first thing that you're suggesting to people, then you're going to stay above that scroll line. Finally, there's no substitute for a great clickable button. That's going to show people exactly what you want them to do and where they need to do it. So let's get back to our Half Moon Yoga, our hypothetical yoga studio that we were talking about. Our goal that we talked about earlier was we want to engage current members to increase class attendance by an average of 10 attendees per class. And we're going to do that over the next 3 months. Well, now that we have this great goal, we need to figure out a way in which we can ask our clientele what we need to do that and how exactly they're going to do it. This is what we came up with. It's a button. It's going to increase our click-through rates, and it's going to show people the schedule. That's not a, hey, buy now, or else bad things are going to happen. It's something very, very simple and small. Now, the idea here is when we get people to view the schedule, they're going to find a class that fits their needs. And they're going to find a class that fits into their goal. Remember, our goal is to increase class attendance on the average, not a specific class. So the easiest way we can do that is by showing people the variety of schedules. So the next question, we have that call to action is, well, gosh, where on earth does it go? It can go in a lot of different places. I have a couple of examples that I'm going to show you here. But you want it to be sort of after a little bit of work, and it should take you to something that encourages somebody to do something. So here's this example that I shared with an animal rescue. We're wanting more people to volunteer. In order to get that, we click the volunteer button. Once that happens, we don't want to take them to our website and then have them get lost in the shuffle. We want to go right to the volunteer form. So make sure that when you're asking somebody to do something, it's not hard for them to figure out where to get there and how to get there. So here's another example of a call to action. We want to reserve a table at the Winter Gala. We click on the button. Where does that take us? It takes us right to the registration page. It doesn't take us to the nonprofit. It doesn't take us to the event page. It takes us right to do what we want them to do. If you're anything like me, any sort of deviation from that loses my attention, and I start wondering, what do I need to do? And oh yeah, I have to go back. So here's a boutique that's providing a coupon. Again, what's our call to action? It's within that button. We're saying get our coupon now. By clicking on that button, that shouldn't take us to the website. It shouldn't take us somewhere else. It should take us right to the coupon where we can print it out or even scan a QR code. So keeping in mind, when we have our call to action, we want to make sure that the path from what we're asking somebody to do and giving them the opportunity to do it is as slow as possible. It is as easy as possible and efficient as possible. Okay, so we talked about how to set a goal. We talked about what kind of messaging that we can create. Next thing I want to talk about is how do we measure what our success is? How do we know whether or not this marketing effort that we've created really has borne fruit for us? Well, there's an old saying when it comes to marketing that if you're not measuring your marketing, you're not marketing. Excuse me. If you're not measuring, you're not marketing. The reason behind that is anything that you need to do has to have some actionable numbers behind it, so that if you need to know whether or not the action creates a good result for you. The way in which you do that is you actually measure it. When it comes to digital, there's a lot of different things that you can look at. How many people opened our email? How many people clicked on it? How many people registered for something? How many people filled out the form? How many people redeemed a coupon? All of those go into the idea of if we can put a number associated with that, we can know whether or not we've hit a successful number for you. So how exactly do you measure a goal? Well, again, here's that animal rescue that we talked about earlier. That the goal is, well, we want to increase our volunteers. They got 11 new volunteers from filling out the form. The Winter Gala got 500 attendees. This is actual, tangible, real-life scenarios. This isn't the hypothetical thing that I made up earlier. This is real things. And then for the boutique, there were 53 coupons claimed. So by doing, we've taken this action, we've done the thing, we've asked our people to go along with us on this ride. Now we can really define, is this enough? Do we want to do it again? Did it work out the way we wanted it to work out? Again, I come back to email as it relates to the conversation at whole. The first thing that we want to look at is that open rate. That really helps define the concept of what our audience is, and it helps define really the ballpark in which we're playing with. So how do you evaluate whether or not you've had a successful open rate? You can evaluate the day and time, make sure that your subject line is optimized, make sure that who the email comes from is truly recognizable. One of the things that irritates me in my role at BizzyWeb, I meet a lot of people week in and week out. And in my life, I have never met anybody named info. So you should never have an email that says info at. It should be coming from a person so that's recognizable. By and large, a good open rate when it comes to email marketing should be about 10 to 20%. If you hire a firm like BizzyWeb, the standard in which you should hold them to is more than that. Our industry average is about 20 to 30%. And there's numbers to be had there, but by and large, if you're doing this yourself, if you can get a 10 to 20% open rate, that's pretty darn good. That's the size of our audience. That's our ballpark. But really, how do we know whether or not we've hit the ball or not? That comes when we start looking at click-through rates. And a click-through rate is somebody who's taken the action that we want them to take. So if our click-through rate isn't high enough, well, we probably need to simplify our call to action. We want to make sure our links are standing out, and we're sharing this with other people before we send this out as a way to really understand whether or not we've hit the mark. And we're sending content that's interesting to our subscribers and our audience, not just what we think is interesting. So a good click-through rate, again, is about 5 to 15%. Really, if you're hitting about 10% on a regular basis, that you're really cooking with gas at that point. So how do we get started? We've laid out a lot of different things. I've talked for a long time now, and all of you have borne with me. Hopefully the jokes were at least somewhat funny enough to chuckle along with. So how do we get started and how do we do this? Well, the first thing I want you to keep in mind is, I know that this sounds kind of complicated, but you can do this, and you really can make this work for you, and you can start today. Remember, as soon as we're done here, you're going to get a workbook from me that's going to lay out how exactly do you create a goal, how do you set it, where do you go with it, what's the message, and then how do you measure whether or not you've been successful or not. So I'm going to give you the tool to write out the plan for you. Whether or not you execute it is up to you, but you can start it today. 3 simple steps that I want you to keep in mind as you're doing this. Number 1, write your goal. Make sure the goal is achievable in a realistic timetable. 2nd, design a great call to action. What do I want my audience to do? What do I want to give them in order to get them to do something? And 3rd, how do I measure those results? It seems really simple. Obviously, we've broken it down a lot more than that, but it goes from there. One of the reasons that I mentioned Constant Contact at the start is that it's a really great backbone to anything that you could do as it relates to both email marketing and social media marketing. It really provides a great starting point and a framework for all of the marketing events that we talked about. This is a best practice seminar, so this isn't necessarily a sell job for Constant Contact, but you can get some of the same tools in a lot of different places. The reason why we like it at BizzyWeb is because it's all in one place. You can get email marketing, you can get event marketing, you can get couponing, you can get social media marketing help all in one specific place. So we are here to help. Again, this is a best practice seminar. This isn't something that you should feel ends with the end of this seminar. If you have more questions, if you are interested in talking with somebody or even having somebody do this for you, I'd be more than happy to chat with you. So for those of you who are viewing this live, we do have a great Constant Contact offer. If you choose to buy it, again, this isn't a requirement by any means, but if you're interested in giving it a shot, you can get 3 months of email marketing for just $5 a month, and that's out the door. So $5 is it. You can send out 1, 2, 10 emails a day, and it's only going to cost you that $5. If you want to do that, you're interested in doing that, go to that constantcontact.com/event-meyer link, and you'll be able to get that special deal. So a couple of resources that I wanted to provide for you. Number 1, if you want to do this again, if you want to see more of our BizzyWeb training, we do these once a week at least. You can go to our events calendar at bizzyweb.com/events to get an idea of what we're doing on a daily basis. 2nd, if you're interested in getting some more information, you want some bedtime reading, I think a great repository for that not only is our blog, but it's also at Constant Contact's blog. They've got a lot of really great information there, so if you're looking to explore a little bit more, you can do there. If you're not interested in that $5 deal, we do have a free trial through that Constant Contact offers, and you can get it by going to bizzyweb.com/cc. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope your marketing in 2017 is as impactful as you're hoping it to be. If you're interested in getting this deck afterwards, if you're interested in talking to somebody about working on some of these, or if you just have some basic questions, feel free and email me. You can email me at trigby@bizzyweb.com. I know it's a weird name. Believe me, I know after all these years, but feel free and send me some feedback, and I'd be more than happy to help you out. One more thing, if you are interested in joining our email list, the easiest thing I can do to suggest you do that, as opposed to trying to remember how to spell my name, is text BIZZY, B-I-Z-Z-Y, to 22828. You'll be taken through just a one-step process, and you'll be added to our email list. So thanks again, everybody. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, feel free and reach out to me at trigby@bizzyweb.com. But I hope your marketing in 2017 is really impactful, and I hope to see you next week. Talk to you then.